Core Stories, Ordinary Marines, Extraordinary Lives.
Hey everybody. This month we have a great video with a Marine who is the grandson of a World War II Medal of Honor recipient. And his entire family was inspired by his grandfather's service. But I interviewed him because John J. Morgan has come up with a very innovative investment social enterprise, and it involves real estate. And I value how he's taken some great ideas and put them all together. Enjoy the video, and I'll catch you on the backside.
Hello, how are you? Doing good. I'm actually sitting in a hotel room in New Jersey right now. My dog's sick and she has to have some sort of surgery due to kidney stones, and there's like one in 3 places that does this surgery in the States. And so I guess I was fortunate. I was only 6 hours away from.
Oh, sorry. My goodness.
Oh yeah, she's doing fine right now. I had to take her to the vet right before I started this with you, just because they're going to determine if she needs surgery or not. And so, but been here since Monday, and I'm just glad to be in a position to like get her help however she needs it.
How are you doing?
Doing good. Things are like, I don't want to jinx myself yet because there's some things that are not official, but it's I'm in a really positive direction right now, and a lot of good information and a good luck of timing, I think is like probably high on the list of things, but hey, I'll take it.
So we can just jump right in if you'd like. I want to introduce John J. Morgan. Now listen, do you go by John J. or do you go by John?
John Morgan is, or just Morgan. Even before I joined the Marines, it was always Morgan.
Great. All right. So you are doing something very interesting from my perspective, a very unique social enterprise investment organization. And that's why I wanted to talk to you. I'm sure that my audience would be interested in the business aspect of this. Very unique. But I wanted, before you have a very interesting Marine Corps history, but you also have a very interesting family history. So I wondered if you could sort of take us through how we got to here.
Certainly. I'd like to thank you, first of all, for allowing me this opportunity to really talk and ramble about who I am and my story and how I got here in the first place. So I joined the Marine Corps. I was in for 13 years, and I joined after I graduated college, but I never went officer. I stayed enlisted. Wanted to go officer. It didn't work out that way, and I thought I was going to do it. But I always wanted to be an embassy guard, and got the opportunity. And then I wasn't expecting sequestration, and I aged myself out. And so, but I think things are working out for the best. But I studied political science, and I became intel. Thought it was a good position to really get into, and I think I did a pretty well, I guess relative is, or if I did a good job or not is relative, but I definitely had a very interesting career. Deployed several times, went to Iraq once, Afghanistan twice, went on 2 MEUs, so got to float around the oceans for a while, and got to spend some time in Germany and Italy as well. And like I said, one of the times I became an embassy guard, I went to Cairo 2 months after the revolution began. So that was a very interesting time. Everything that you saw on TV, I was literally about 2 blocks away, so I had a front row seat. And it was I think that was probably one of the most interesting times of my career, because you live in a country that is just went through a revolution. You think everything would fall apart, but oddly enough, the country seemed like it was functioning, and only in like a few areas where what you saw on TV with Tahrir Square and a few other places, but everything seemed to be business as normal. Then my second post was Moscow, which was a very interesting time.
What year were you there?
That was from 2011 to 12. And it was a pretty interesting time, because I've always wanted to visit Russia. I always kind of was intrigued by Russia, and it was a good place to be intrigued by, especially if you're intel. And then I got the opportunity to live there for a year, traveled to as much as I could, saw a good chunk of it for a country that big. And it goes into, the interest kind of comes from some of the things I'll get to when I talk about my family history, is the Russians actually saved my grandfather's life during World War II. And I think that's where the interest came from. And I'll get to that in a bit. And my third post was actually Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And so that was a very interesting time as well, because everyone has their idea of what Rio is, and it, for the most part, it was that. Lived in a really cool apartment in the middle of Rio. Could see the Cristo from where I lived. It was probably the best view of my life. But during that time, they were getting ready for the Olympics and the World Cup, and so the government was spending a lot of money on building this up, and not the social services. And this is right before the president was impeached. And there was a lot of rioting going on. I think the only time I really ever got a little nervous on that duty was when I was in Rio and we got surrounded by rioters. They weren't focused or targeted on us. They were just angry, and they're protesting against the government. And we got stuck in the consulate, and I never thought I would be attacked with green coconuts. They smashed almost every single window that they could. They never breached the compound, but it was just a very interesting time to be in Rio. So I got to live in 3 different places with 3 different times of history being made. Like, just to back up a little bit why I joined, it's kind of the family business. My dad's a retired first sergeant. I've had several other extended family in the Air Force, and several other extended family in the military. My brother is an active duty colonel in the Army. He first joined the Marines as enlisted. So he was in the first Gulf War in Somalia, got out, went to college. I think that's probably the reason why he never went to the Balkans, is the reason why that was the only conflict he missed, because he was getting his college degree and later on his commission. My sister joined as well. She went in the Army as an officer. She served in Iraq as too. And one of the things that I'm very proud of and hope to honor his legacy is my grandfather is John Red Morgan, who was a Medal of Honor recipient. His life reads like fiction. You think that there's just no way that somebody could survive that many times. And it was just, the guy was incredible. And he passed away when I was about 10. So I really never got to know who he was other than grandpa, but really learning who he was just a huge honor to carry his name. He was a B-17 pilot during World War II. He actually flew for Canada before the Americans got in the war because he hurt his neck when he was younger, and they disqualified him. They wouldn't let him join. So he went up to Canada and then flew for them and fought for them. And so when we entered the war, they let him transfer because, well, America needed the pilots. And so he flew. And one of the missions, it was like, I think it was actually the first daylight raid over Berlin is when the action took place where he was awarded the medal. So he was a co-pilot. He was flying, and unfortunately, his pilot, Robert Campbell, he didn't die from immediately. He was mortally injured, and he was still trying to fly the plane. So my grandfather had to hold him back, fly the plane. All his gunners were passed out because they shot out the oxygen tanks. One of his I believe it was his belly gunner, Ty Weaver, who I got to meet too, actually had his arm shot off, and they didn't know what to do with him because they couldn't tie a tourniquet. And so, like, he was going to bleed out. So what they did is they tied a parachute on him and chucked him out the plane because they were so high in elevation, they knew it would freeze it. Or that was like what they were hoping, is that it would freeze it and the Germans would patch him up. And that's exactly what happened. He was captured. The Germans patched him up, and because he already lost his arm, they sent him back home. They knew he wasn't going to fight, so why take care of him in the POW camps? And so,
wow, I didn't know that aspect of the story. Fascinating.
Yeah, it was. It's amazing. I really.
So keep going with the story.
He flew the plane and made the raid and flew back. And when he landed, if anybody has ever seen the movie 12 O'Clock High, the character Bishop, who's awarded the Medal of Honor, that's his story put into that movie. And he was awarded the Medal of Honor, and he was grounded. And then he, however, he was supposed to be grounded. But everything in his biographies and everything that's written about him is that they make it sound like some John Basilone story where he demanded to get back out there with his men and fight. And so they finally relented and let him fly, and he got shot down and captured by the Germans. In truth, though, he snuck onto the plane with a general, and he got shot down, and that's how he was captured and became the only Medal of Honor recipient in America to have that distinguished title, or quote unquote honor, I guess. And so once he was captured, they were not very happy with Americans because it's not good to have a Medal of Honor recipient captured. They wanted to really court-martial him, but you can't do that to him. And however, the Germans did use him as propaganda, saying that, like, look, America has to send their heroes back into war, keep fighting, they're running out of men. And so it was, but getting back to why the Russia really intrigued me is because during the time in the POW camp, my grandfather's job was, I guess, was in charge of building tunnels or something. I was told that story a long time ago, so I might be a little fuzzy on that one. But whatever his job was or something, but like, they were a bit more, I guess, lenient in the POW camp with some of the pilots or something, and they made a moonshine out of their Red Cross rations. So one night he got drunk and he beat up a German guard really bad, and he was sentenced to be executed. And we actually still have his execution papers on yellow onion paper. So that was pretty cool to see. When I haven't seen those papers in a while, but it was pretty cool. And then 2 days before his execution was to occur, the Russians liberated the camp. And that's why Russia has always kind of intrigued me, just because it was, I'm a very proud American, but I also, if it wasn't for the Russians, I wouldn't be here either. So that's where that interest came from. And so that's why I joined the Marine Corps. I've always wanted to do it. And I finally got to the age where I said, I was 25, I wanted to do it and I better do it. And so I was actually pretty overweight at one time, and I lost 137 pounds and joined. And so that's how I ended up in the Marine Corps. And so went to boot camp, and after you lose that amount of weight, you think that you're some sort of physical specimen. And so you actually get to boot camp, and then I was like, wow, am I getting too old for this? And what did I do? But also growing up as an Air Force brat, I think there was some sort of expectation or the wrong expectation of what I was going to get myself into. And so went through boot camp and went to intel school, and here we are.
Well, not exactly here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for telling us the story of your grandfather's award and how it came to be awarded. And then, I don't know, I like his spirit so much. And obviously it inspired service in your whole family. Obviously that it's a little genetic, I love that, because it doesn't always happen that way. But it sounds to me like your grandfather was very brave, but long before and after the action that allowed him to be awarded this, the highest honor we have to award anyone. I'm so glad that he was recognized for the courage and everything that it took for him to receive that medal, because sometimes in cases like that, it's not clear why some people don't receive that award. I can't imagine the courage it took for him to deal with his mortally wounded co-pilot and manage that plane. I mean, it's just extraordinary, the thinking and the physical courage and the devotion to mission, to saving that one, I guess, what was it was a gunner who lost his
I believe
arm?
he was the belly gunner, Ty Weaver. And that's actually why I kind of was pausing, because some of the things that you're talking about was just to be able to get through that. I'm trying to think, it's like I have nothing to compare it to. And
No, we don't have any. No, it's a different fight today, but it's very, very powerful to hear that from you. Now, I realize that you were a little boy when he died, but it is wonderful that you did know him in some way. It's wonderful that he lived long enough for you to know him, and I'm sure it was wonderful for him. And of course, your Marine Corps service is very interesting, and I could sort of pick your brain about that for a while. But we're here because you've come up with a very interesting organization. It's very unique. To tell us about this.
I'm starting to get into real estate investing. I like real estate because of the self-sustaining long-term sustainability of what it can provide and what my overall goal is. Currently, right now, I think many of us know, on base and off base can be challenging. The housing, you get on base and I'm not going to speculate on the reasons why it could be challenging, but like off base, sometimes it's easy to take advantage of service members and be a slumlord and not take care of the properties. And so I thought that was a good opportunity to really say, hey, like real estate is a very stable, safe entity that maybe I can develop something that will give back in a few different ways. One, I want to be able to provide better housing for service members and their family to a degree that the property management is a very, very strong aspect of for me. Due to the fact that when I was deployed several times and you see someone on the phone speaking with their spouse and there's a problem with the house and it's like, well, how are you going to get it fixed? And the air conditioning has been out for 3 months and nobody can come by, and they say they're going to fix it and they never do. And that's what I really want to be able to provide, is because I've kind of experienced that or actually I was fortunate not to experience it myself, but I experienced it through the observation of others. And I want people to be able to, if they have to be called upon to a mission, that things like, air conditioning and leaky pipes or something stupid is not going to become a long-term issue that's going to cause them additional stress that they don't need. So if anybody was to say, hey, there's a problem, because it's just the right thing to do. And one of the things that I try to do is I focus on distressed properties. I purchase them and rehab them and just turn them into long-term rentals. And the way I was able to do that is I invested very well when I was in the Marines. I wasn't an aggressive investor. My whole strategy was, which isn't usually recommended for people that are younger, because they say you should be more aggressive, but I didn't really see the point of that. It was, if I'm working and I'm looking at long-term delayed gratification, that why not just be able to focus on something that will pay me just to own it, like with dividends. If they're going to pay me every 3 months just to own their stock, and I can just reinvest it to obtain more stock, then why not do that? And that was kind of the whole focus on it. So it was just kind of it was a slow train, but it really turned into something good. And it was, I think for me, at least, it was able to ride out the volatility of the ups and downs, because as long as they were going to pay me a dividend, it was probably a good indication that the stock was healthy and it was going to continue to be healthy. So by the time I got out, I had a nice war chest. And so I pretty much liquidated. I think that my initial goal was to diversify. I did have an idea of why, or what I wanted to do and to help people and all this kind of stuff, but it wasn't really concrete yet. And so my experience though is that I had a good pile of cash, but it was still hard when I went to do a business. And I thought that I have all this money but nobody would lend to me because it wasn't a W-2 and it was investment income. So it wasn't really proven income, which I still don't understand. It's all about taxes and stuff like that. So the people that did make it starting without anything, good for them, because I don't know how they did it, because I would have been able to do it. So that's kind of that was the beginning of hey, let's try to do something here. And the way to do it is you got to think something of legacy and self-sustainability and the future to be able to really help things. So let's start first with housing. We'll give people a really good place to live. So I liquidated everything, focus on properties. I have 9. There's about $1.3 million worth of inventory, so not bad for a jarhead, and 2.6 million valuation of the company. So I was kind of shocked that I was able to do that. And so what the overall goal though is, maybe I can expand that with shareholders, build or focus on more properties, raise the property, revitalize neighborhoods. And eventually what I would like to do is the revenue that these houses generate is start to focus on investing in vet startups, businesses, and nonprofits. And that's the legacy part that I want to build into is, well, if you're in the military, we all know about BH. So why not use it to help fellow service members instead of going to the bottom line of an investment company? So I'm trying to build a for-profit company that will eventually help other people get off the ground and running. And why not do it through good housing for service members?
So let's talk through this. You, in the Marine Corps, you saved your money and used it to buy stocks that
Yes.
were stable producers and developed an income stream from that you reinvested into more of the same stocks or more similar stocks.
Yep, just reinvested it over and over.
And by the time you left the Marine Corps, the money you had invested in stocks had multiplied, and you had enough money to start an organization. And you wanted to use those funds instead of investing in perhaps a business stream. You wanted to invest it in real property because you
Yes.
thought that real property would grow in value, it wouldn't decrease in value.
Yeah.
And that real property would be specifically distressed properties that you could improve to be quality family housing for service members near military bases. And am I staying on track? Am I
exactly.
okay? And well, I mean, I'm just trying to repeat it for the purpose of the audience perhaps understanding a little better. If it's said one way and it's said another way, they're going to understand one of us, because by the end. But the point is that then you would have real property that's been improved, so it's improved in value, but it's also serving a social purpose because it's well managed for young military families who are often separated by deployment and need that support. They need the support of a good landlord. And so that's your primary mission, is that the organization provides the housing with good management. And then as the rental income comes in from that, to continue to grow the portfolio of properties for this purpose, and to use some of that revenue to support military nonprofits that you're interested in. Am I right?
And I really thank you for that. I have a tendency to ramble and I get excited about the whole process, but yes, essentially that is correct.
So the reason this is very interesting to me is because I've seen people in organizations do parts of these things, but not this system that you've developed. And that's what I think is fascinating and innovative. So you've developed, many times people will flip a house. So buy a distressed property, improve it, and then sell it for a profit. And that profit they will use for good purpose. They will use perhaps to buy another one, and then whatever, maybe some portion of it for good purpose. Maybe they have a nonprofit that they run or they support. Okay, so that's a fraction of what you're doing. Then there are people who buy investment properties there around military bases, big bases like Lejeune or other bases around the country, just for the purpose of having good management, just for the purpose of having properties that are managed well for these military families who, like you say, they're predator landlords out there, and they're awful, and they make life miserable for these families. So that's another form of income and business strategy. But you are sort of combining the two, and that's very interesting. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of somebody thinking that big about these matters, even if you didn't have the sort of what I would call the back step, the back growth of the investment income going into buying more properties and developing an organization otherwise, like you say, this for-profit, you'd still be doing something great because you're managing properties well for people who need it. But it's the fact that you're doing both that I think is so interesting. So I want to kind of unpack how you came to sort of mind map that.
I think that there was some really unfortunate experiences, I think actually came nationally. When I first started investing in the stock market, I was 18, 19 years old, and that's when the dot-com bubble burst. And so I saw the fear or the damage of what that caused, that you don't invest in anything that doesn't exist anything or doesn't. I mean, people were investing in stocks that weren't backed behind anything. And it was just like, I think even at that age, I was like, I don't really understand that because it's not making a profit. It's actually hemorrhaging money. So why would you do that? And like, look what happened. Like it popped and it caused a lot of damage and harm. I think the second part that I really experienced was back in 08 and 09. I was in the Marines by then. I wasn't home, but I joined the Marine Corps out of Fort Myers, Florida. Back in 08 and 09 was like when the subprime mortgages were crushing everybody
Failed.
and people were losing
Yeah.
their homes. Fort Myers, Florida was the home or the epicenter of home foreclosures. And so I saw the damage that it did when you overextend yourself and you have too many properties, you're not making money. And I think those two events had a lot of influence. And I don't really think I know how to really put it in terms of connecting everything, but I saw that the damage that it did. And so what can I do to mitigate this? What can I do to bring security? And I think a lot of reasons why I'm trying to do both, and a lot of people, it might be more challenging for others, is I've done this all by myself I think it'd be more difficult if you had to bring more people in because you have to listen to different people and their ideas. And if you're going to deal with somebody's money, well, you have to be kind of, and agreeable to their thoughts and their
Yes.
perspective as well. And I was able to do this all by myself. And that's where I think that gave me the position to be able to do this and how everything is structured at the moment and to bring that security. And so the end goal though, of what I think that a bad economy can bring is some of the things that I wanted to focus on is what was the long-term sustainability of being able to do something. So if I'm able to say, hey, there's these nonprofits that are really good at their mission, what can they do to really focus on their mission? Like if you're a nonprofit, you're spending money to chase money, you are pretty dependent on donors, and I didn't want to be that. So if I started a foundation now, then I'm just going to be chasing donors the whole time, and I didn't want to do that. So that's why I built the for-profit system right now. So I try to build it with the help of shareholders. They will exit. I will buy their equity back. And once they buy their equity back and they're satisfied with the investment that may have come from that, and that's when I'll be able to really support these other organizations in the manner that I want them to. So that way they are able to 100% focus on their mission if I believe in what they're doing. And so they can continue helping. And one of the reasons why I really want to stay in military communities is because of the service aspect of it. It's the security of service members paying the rent. Again, the bottom line is it's not going towards a investment company in the future, but towards helping other service members. So that's what their rent is. That's the ecosystem I'm trying to develop, is to continue to help serve or live in one of my properties and help serve others. And even in a bad economy, when people stop donating, I hope that I'll be able to continue supporting them so that way they're able still to continue their mission in life.
So let's talk specifically of Ismako. Is that right?
Yes.
Ismako. So that's named after your three dogs,
English
Izzy and
Wolf.
May and Coco. Okay. Now, which one are you at the specialized veterinarian up in New Jersey, staying at a hotel to take care of this dog? Which one is that?
I am with May.
May.
She got some kidney stones. She got a really bad infection about a month ago, and she was great one night and woke up and was not acting right. And so we got her in a hospital, and I was kind of concerned. These dogs are my best friends, and it breaks my heart if I see them not well. And so we got her to the hospital hydrated, and she was kind of not doing very well for about a week. And then she got back to normal, and she was on some medication. And then she suddenly recently relapsed, and we're like, what's going on? And so we went to a specialist and found out that she had some stones. And so now I'm in New Jersey because she has to have a surgery that I think one of three people or one of three organizations in the whole country do this. And so fortunately I was only 6 hours away. And so she's at the vet right now getting checked out and possibly getting prepped for surgery. And so, yeah.
Now, just briefly aside, your wife is an ER doctor. Is that right?
Yes, and that's one of the fortunate things is that it seems like there's a lot of translation. You wouldn't think there would be, but I guess it's somewhat of a language that's easier to understand. So I'm very fortunate for her in many, many ways, but I'm especially fortunate for her for like being able to say, like, call the vet and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what I think is happening. And it helps a lot. And so,
Sure.
and again, I married up. I don't know how I captured a doctor, but I did. And so very fortunate for her, and so are the puppies.
So let's get back to Ismako for a minute and talk about how Ismako works, right? That's your for-profit right now, like how it
Yep.
works. If somebody wanted to invest, how would they do that?
You can go to my site, www.ismako.com, IZMACO. And there is a site on there where you can go to and read. I set it up to allow anyone to invest, not just accredited investors. Anyone can have an opportunity, want to democratize real estate investment, because it's normally an opportunity that is not brought or available to others. So that was kind of the big push of why I did it, is really to, I mean, it's open to anyone, but it's focused towards service members. Hopefully they'll take the opportunity to see the benefit of what it is to invest in real estate. And even if it's just a small chunk, I set the minimum at $250. And I'm very limited because of the regulations that go into it, of what I can exactly say. Like all the documents are there for people to read, but it's exciting. It's been a lot of hard work, and I put myself in that position of saying, hey, if I was able to invest in real estate, I think I would have. And that's why I pushed it, because normally people, when they go through setting everything up, and they have to do through the laws and the regulations and the lawyers, they set up in a way that's only available towards accredited investors. And to be an accredited investor, you have to have a net worth of over $1 million or make $250,000 a year or something around that salary. And so, like, private investment is not obtainable to hardly anyone. And so that's why it was another, I kind of consider myself contrarian at times. They say it's not a good idea to do that, which I've discovered why at times, but hey, why not?
The other thing I think is important about your organization is that you're very right when you say that real estate investing is usually fruitful. I have made a lot of money on the houses that I have bought distressed, fixed up and lived in, and sold at a later time. And I'm a very average person. I'm just willing to get involved in some elbow grease and not terribly afraid of a property if it's in a bad shape, if it has good bones and is in a halfway decent neighborhood. But it is a tremendous financial risk, because you can't pay cash. You can't borrow for a distressed property normally. Most people who have the energy and strength to renovate don't have the capital to pay cash for a property. So it does become a challenge. And so I get that in the circumstance your organization allows, the average person can invest in what you're already doing, and you already have the resources to grow this, to buy another property or to renovate a distressed property you possess or what have you. The investor doesn't have to come up with all of it themselves. They don't have to really take any risk at all. And like you say, on your site are the financials, and the financials show the remarkable real estate growth. Now, we're in a great time,
Yes.
Interest rates are very low, values are very high. Some places it's almost impossible to find properties. It's often very hard now to find distressed properties. They're just snatched up so quickly. So there is some, stealthy work there. I had some friends who wanted to move, and they could find nothing on the market in the Virginia Beach area. And so what they went around doing was looking for skips, looking for dumpsters in front of properties, and making a deal with the person who was renovating, who owned and renovated a distressed house before it ever went on the market, because it was the only way they could find a property. So it's a very, very good time for organizations like yours. And so I have a lot of confidence in your approach, and I have a lot of confidence in the outcomes here, but your financials already prove all that. But I think it's a very interesting thing. Now, what's next?
Just to really say, I appreciate that, what you just said, because that really does play into a lot of the strategy that I developed. I wanted to be able to make this a safe investment for people to enter. And so there was an immense amount of risk mitigation that I try to put in there. Probably haven't thought about everything, but I did everything I could, and that's why I put my own equity into it, and I'm not taking it out because I want to show the confidence that of in myself, and to push it out to others. Because like what you said about distressed properties, I think one of the benefits that I can do is take on bigger challenges that other people don't want to take on. And it plays a couple of reasons. One is that if you're a flipper, you got to be able to make money off of it. So if it's going to cost too much, you're not going to get into it because, well, to really do it right, like you can't cut out all corners. And so if I can take on more of the challenges, or I'm able to do that because I'm long-term investment for service member, like it's going to be open to predominantly focused on service members.
So
for that long time.
what you're talking about is the quality of renovation.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I think that really sums it up. So that way instead of having some house that's just deteriorating and bringing property values down, those are going to be the ones I'm going to like try to scoop up, because like my duty to the investors is, well, try to provide them a return. So I think that especially like how real estate works is really get those bigger challenges because it's long-term and brings property values up. And I noticed that when I started fixing in some of the houses, I noticed some of the neighbors were fixing up some of their properties. And so just kind of that influence on other things. So yeah, I appreciate that you brought that up because I would have forgot.
That's a very good point. I mean, when you're talking about people who buy distressed properties, fix them up and sell them, they're not going to fix them up. They're not going to invest in the renovation to the degree that they would if they were holding on to the property. I mean, if they're going to just sell the property, they're just going to try to make it saleable many times. They're not going to really come in and think 10 years from now, how can I avoid problems 10 years from now with this property that you might be thinking about when you're renovating it, because you're going to own it 10 years from now. You're going to have tenants in it between now and then, and you're going to have to make sure that they're happy.
Yes.
So I really value, that's a very good point. That's a very interesting aspect of you may have to invest a little more than somebody else would who's just selling it, flipping it. But the long-term costs to the value of the property and maintenance of the property will be lower. Yes. If you put it on the front end.
Exactly.
I like it. I really like it. So let's review the name of the company is Ismako. It's IZMACO.com. It's a very beautiful site. You have a lovely website. And it's very simple, very easy to navigate. I really enjoyed perusing your site the times I visited. I visited again this morning. I think you're doing something wonderful. You're welcome.
I'm really excited about what it is. It's been a lot of hard work, and you have some days you're questioning yourself, like, why did I get into this? Why didn't I just keep my investments? But then it's really kind of thinking, it's like, it's going back to why did I join the Marines? It's to serve others. And so the motto of my company is to continue service to the country. And that's what I want to do. I hope that this is just the first step of many things to come, and hopefully build partnerships and be able to help revitalize areas that really nobody wants to go into. And it's the long-term strategy is, I think, what's going to really help carry this through. And that I'm excited about the future. It was just that, like, it just seems like that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, there's been just really good news and nothing official yet. So okay. I want to talk about it because I'm a bit superstitious and I don't want to jinx myself, but I think things are really starting to move in a positive direction, and it's time to kick butt, do something good in the world, or continue to do something good in the world for those that are serving others.
You definitely are. And you gives me an interesting thought about, perhaps in more depressed real estate times, expansion of real estate investment into higher crime neighborhoods was risky. But now that the inventory is so low, you really do have to open your mind. Now, I do see a lot here in Portsmouth, Virginia, we have a lot of tough neighborhoods. But I've seen investors do very interesting things. And that is, they come in and they raise a property that has low value, and they just build a brand new house right there in the middle of a bad neighborhood, and then another, and another, and another, and another. And it changes the neighborhood. I mean, in a year, really undesirable neighborhoods have become very moderately desirable in 1 year, because somebody came in on one block, tore down 8 houses and put up 7, but they're brand new, beautiful houses. So I hadn't even thought about that kind of investment before this season. I mean, I'm an old woman and I've never seen the real estate growth I'm seeing now, you know? So I imagine that because you run the organization, you do have unilateral decision-making and unilateral risk. And so you really can kind of roll the dice when you want to. And I like it.
I really am trying to do my best of really keeping on track of what is currently going on. My mind kind of goes in 10,000 different directions, and probably why I don't sleep much at night. But like that's actually kind of one of the things I hope to be able to do in the future, is to go into places like Philadelphia and Baltimore and Detroit and help revitalize the city and the neighborhoods. And part of one of the reasons what I'm trying to do now is to build a very, very solid, strong foundation in these military communities. So if I can do that, have this very strong foundation, and then maybe I can be a little bit more riskier and take more time into building an area, and not just try to gentrify it and you know, blow it up and make a bunch of money off it and stuff like that. But like, you know, really try to, or at least do my best in an attempt to do some really good for all Americans.
That community.
I know that sounds very idealistic and stuff, but yeah, I hope to do that.
Well, you know, eventually you might find like-minded partners. Not, like I say, I think you're very forward-thinking right now. I've never heard of anybody doing what you're doing, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I've heard of people doing pieces of what you're doing, but not the whole thing. So I don't know, it might catch on.
I hope so. And that's kind of what a lot of times the connections that I make on LinkedIn, it's not because I'm trying to connect with people around the world, different service members, not because I'm trying to solicit investment from them particularly. The long-term aspect of like, hey, you know, if I'm confident that I am, if I'm able to pull it off and I'm able to get in the position that whether we spoke about some of the topics earlier, well, like, I'm connected to you. I'm trying to build that network. So that way, like, hey, you know, let's do something bigger. So, but you know, if I pull it off, then great. If I don't, then what's the harm with the LinkedIn connection?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's been wonderful talking to you. I'm fascinated by what you're doing. I'm honored to know you. And I think that you're going to do just fine.
Thank you. And I'm excited. And I hope that I get in a position very soon I'm going to start rambling again, but I thank you.
All right, John.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. Take care.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Well, what do you think? Great guy, huh? Great investment and a great pet parent. I'm glad you watched to the end. And I apologize for the delay in uploading interviews because it's been a tragic year, as it has been for most people. And anyway, thank you. Bye.
Core Stories, Ordinary Marines, Extraordinary Lives.